Cool, you're on.
Are we good? All right, everybody. Hello. Let me get into this one first. Are we good? All right, we are live. Hello, Instagram. Nice to see you. Type into the chat when you come on in to see us. Hello on YouTube. Hello on Instagram, on Facebook, and wherever you are in the world. Ooh, the new blue is popping today, I think. I like that. What's good, guys? Nice to see you. Hello, hello. We are live across the world. It is, it's wonderful to see you. Type into the chat when you come in. We are back. Coffee with Goffy took a spring break. I took my coffee cups to North Georgia over the last few days with the kids. The kids had a week off, so we went up to a beautiful lake house, Lake Oconee, for any of you who know where that is. It's about 90 miles east of Atlanta. So we had a wonderful experience in a very quiet, very tranquil, just beautiful, peaceful lake house. I always say to business owners, your environment matters. Many of you are too busy running around here, there, and everywhere, taking trips. Even the trips that you take need to be well thought through when it comes to the vacations that you have. Do you need an active, busy one? Do you need to go to Disney to be stimulated? Do you need a beach to be relaxed on, or a lake house which just serene and tranquil and peaceful, and you can read and be spontaneous and go for walks in the woods and a little bit of nature? I think everything that you do in life needs to be thought through, and that's counterintuitive to how a lot of people live and play. But it's been my experience, the more that you are conscious of the type of weekend that you want to spend with your kids, and what do you need right now, or what type of vacation that you want to have based upon what you need right now, the more that you are in a peak position. And don't forget, as business owners, that's our job. We are we're not athletes as such. We are mental athletes. We need the physical element to get us through the day, but ultimately our job is it's 24/7 mentally. So we have to maintain that mental strength, if you like. And many times I try to work out what I need at what particular point. Is this one a fun trip, right? That's, of course, all trips are fun, but do I want to go somewhere and just play and laugh? And is it Disney, or is it somewhere on the beach and you have fun on the beach or whatever? Or is this let's go for walks and be a bit more spontaneous, and we take one of the kids on a morning to a coffee shop and just spend some time with him or her? Or do we get a boat and just go out for drives on the lake whenever anybody wants? Do we play a little bit of basketball out the front of the house, but it's in a beautiful home in nature, and we watch the sun come up and we watch it go down, and we have barbecues on a balcony and just watch the lake and the ducks and the movement of the water? All of these things sound, I don't know how they're coming across, but they're so important as business owners that you focus on what you need at that point to optimize who you are. And don't forget, that's everything that this show, Coffee with Goffy, is about. It's not a typical podcast about marketing or anything like that. Go back and listen to all of the previous episodes. I suspect in the first 300 or 400 episodes of this podcast over nearly 10 years now, I've said everything about funnels. I've said about workshops. I've taught you about ads and follow-up and scripts, and I've done all sorts of pranked phone calls to highlight the stupidity of how much money is lost on the phone. I've done all of this for a decade, and you can go back and listen to any of those episodes whenever you're ready. But what this podcast is about, it's about changing the way you think about your life and your business, because that's where we're going to find the most success for you. Business owners need to be optimized, and I hope and pray that you take yourself seriously enough that you do think of yourself as an athlete. And let me share this with you. It's quite interesting. Just say hello on Instagram when you come in. I'm going to get to you in a minute. I've gone off on one already. I'm going to say this to you in the way that I was explained it. Paul, how would you treat a machine in your kitchen that generated $1 million a year? There's a machine in your kitchen and it generates $1 million every year, and it sits in your kitchen. How well would you treat it? Would you look after it? Would you clean it? Would you maintain it? Would you have people come around, look on it? Would you make sure it was always updated, that it was always clean? Like, there'd be a shrine to the thing, right? And my point in the metaphor is the machine is you. Right? If we had a machine in your kitchen that was making $1 million a year, you would treat it really, really well. You'd maintain it. You'd look after it. You'd learn about how to keep it updated. You'd every single day you'd walk past and you'd say thank you to it. Right? You'd have a love for it. Right? You would do things for it to make sure that it was always on and it was always working and it was never going to break, because this thing's making you $1 million a year. And the story, to bring you all into it before we even get into the podcast, you are that machine. right? Now, it might be 100 grand a year right now, but it might be $500,000 a year right now. It might be $1 million. The machine is you. And the bit that was pointed out to me very early was you need to look after yourself, Paul. And the more breaks you take, the more money you make. And you get very selective of how you spend your time and who you spend it with and where you go and what you need and what your gym looks like in your home. All of these things, right? All business owners should have gyms in their homes. Non-negotiable. There should be a place in your home for a gym because it's not worth the commute. Why the hell is any business owner getting in a car to travel to a gym for 25 minutes? Now, you might not be able to afford one right now, and it might not be practical right now, but things like this should be in your eye line because you should be the most optimized individual in your family. You should be the most rested. You should be the most preserved. You should be the most fit. You should have, over and above anybody else in your family, the nutrients, the doctor visits, the checks, whatever, because you're the asset that everybody in your family relies upon. So it makes sense to me that you are the guy, that you are the girl that is looked after the most. Now, that's not going to come across well. I appreciate that because everybody listening to this is naturally subservient and they want the best for everybody else except themselves. But it's like the airlines tell you, put your own life vest on first because you're no good if you're at the bottom of the ocean. I wholeheartedly believe in that. And everybody in my family gets to benefit because I think like this. So it's not selfish, it's self-first. It's making sure that I preserve Paul's energy and Paul's mind and Paul's thinking in a way that everybody else gets to benefit. If my intention is pure, that everybody around me gets to benefit because of my energy and my vitality and my health. And right now I'm going through every test possible for, in fact, I've just sent an email to somebody to upgrade my executive health consultations with a company here in Orlando. I want to live as long as I can because if I live longer, I impact more people. So I take myself and my energy, my health and what I need very, very seriously. And that shows up in the business success. It shows up in the size of my team and the fun that I have and various other things and the impact that I can have. And not just impact for a year or 1 year or 2 years, like decades long impact. This is my 20th year in business. I've been in business for 2 decades. I'm into my third technically when you really think about it. And I've got more energy and more love for business now than I ever have. That's not normal. Because at this point, business has done a number on most people and they are so consumed by it. It's crap. Their health is bad. There's no thought goes into anything like this. So I'm just going to kick off the podcast with that little reminder. The more breaks you take, the more you make. Your environment matters. Who you hang around with matters. If you want to get to the next level, if you're stuck right now and you want to get to the next level, you have to change your thoughts. You don't change your thoughts by driving the same route every day to work, being in the same environment all day, every day, talking to the same people every night, talking to your staff all day, every day, watching the same news, watching the same media, the same echo chamber. You change your thoughts by changing your environment. And a shameless plug for every one of you listening to this, the best and next place for you to do that is Los Angeles in May at the Cash Pace Summit. We put these events on for you to change your environment, to give you a chance to get on a flight, get away from your office, get away from your family. And I don't care, and I'm going to say this, I've got 5 kids. I don't care if you've got 1 kid, 2 kids, 3 kids at home. You need to leave those kids on a weekend sometimes to get to meaningful events. Now, I'm not saying leave those kids and go on a golf trip. And in fact, you should, by all accounts, right? You should do that. In fact, I don't even know why I said that. Like you're a free, autonomous individual. Like you don't need to be there every single weekend. But you have to leave in order to get the knowledge and get the information and get the network that you need to give your kids a better quality of life. And we heard this recently from somebody who said, I can't leave. And the only reason that he gave for not leaving was, I've got a baby. I've got a 1-year-old. It's like, and? I'm still waiting for the reason that you can't leave. Now, unless there's absolute only you that can babysit that baby that weekend, then I get it and I'm respectful of it. But if it's just the emotional bullshit, which it nearly always is, the emotional guilt, the emotional pull, the emotional drama of, I need to explain to my wife I need to leave for the weekend, or what is usually the problem, I need to explain to my wife's parents that I need to leave for the weekend, or I need to explain to my own parents why I need to leave for the weekend to go to Los Angeles, which is nearly always the problem. That I've been in this for decades, like I said. The problem is never the problem. The bullshit that people come out with is stunning about why they can't attend events. Somebody told us the other day, I don't like the West Coast. I have to travel from the East Coast. And newsflash, there's somebody flying in from England, right, which will be a 14-hour flight plus 2 hours in immigration and more by the time they land. It'll be a 24-hour epic journey traveling from England to get to Los Angeles for the Cash Pay Summit. That individual just wants it more, right? And I don't care how that comes across. That individual who travels that far wants it more, and newsflash will probably get it. There's a 99 reasons for you not to come to LA, The most successful just find one reason to be there. I could talk to you all about the agenda, and I could tell you I'm going to bring the house down with AI, and what agents you should be using, and how everybody's moving from GPT and even Claude and all of these AI things that you keep hearing about and seeing about. It's not about chatbots anymore. It's now about replacing roles inside of your business, and you need to understand this. Stop thinking of AI as GPT or Claude or whatever it is, Grok, whatever you use. You're using a chatbot, and all it's doing is answering questions for you. AI has now moved on to roles being carried out, complete autonomy inside of PT clinics everywhere in the world right now. You've got to come and learn which ones you need and which ones you should be using in 2026 and beyond. That is absolutely worth the flight. But the real reason to be there, you will be sat next to the most successful cash pay clinic owners. Insurance business owners are coming in their droves. Insurance business owners need to know how to get cash pay inside of their business, and that's ultimately what we're going to help you do. So just a little kickoff. It's nice to be back. Coffee with Goffy is alive and well. You guys on Instagram, say hello. What do you think of the new hoodie, producer Jay?
I like them.
You like them?
I like blues. Is a nice color.
This was my original. This baby blue color was the original Paul Goff Physio Rooms color. I actually seen some pictures recently of the very early Paul Goff Physio Rooms opening a couple of weeks, if you like. We did a press launch and the media came. And this was the color, the baby blue and the white. So it reminds me of the Paul Goff Physio Rooms. I feel like I'm going back in time with these colors, which is pretty cool. So anyway, speaking of press conference, I'm also in LA. March the 29th for the Clinic Owner Meetup. Come and see us. Head over to cashpaysummit.com/press. I'm going to be in Los Angeles for a Clinic Owner Meetup. Be nice to get to talk to informally. I've got drinks for you. We're going to do a live Q&A session. We've got networking. I'm meeting up with the vendors, the hotel, the press over there. It's going to be a big deal. So come and say hello if you are anywhere near Los Angeles. Sunday 29th, 5 till 9 p.m. at the Loews Hotel downtown Hollywood. Myself and a few of the team will be there. So spread the word for me. If you are not in LA, chances are you're not, but if you know somebody who is, tell them about the event, cashpaysummit.com/press, and they can book a seat there. It's free. Use the Eventbrite link, and I will see you in Los Angeles on Sunday. So that's what I've been up to. North Georgia was beautiful. I got to go see Atlanta, took the kids. Great city, by the way. First time I've ever been to Atlanta. I must have landed in Atlanta 20 times and more. So it was cool to finally go see that building, the big spiky building, which I got my picture taken in front of. And Centennial Park was beautiful as well. So lots of history. I did say to Natalie I'd actually like to go back to Atlanta for a weekend, just me and her, and we can kind of appreciate the history in the museums and just the cool vibe of Atlanta that you might not be able to do with 5 kids who don't appreciate history as much as I do. So yeah, cool place. Loved Lake Oconee. Wonderful place. So yeah, glad to go and glad to be back in the seat. And now all systems go. Coffee with Goffy. First question coming up. What have you got for me, producer Jay?
All right, we got Missouri on the clock.
Missouri, yeah, let's do it.
Chesterfield, Missouri. We got Deanna G. One of my therapists refuses to treat a patient due to making a political comment during a session. Now the patient has complained. What do I do? All
right, so let me just recap that one for everybody listening on Instagram and Facebook. My understanding is one of the patients has made a political comment. The therapist didn't like it and has refused to treat that patient moving forward, and the patient is now complained.
Yes.
And the question is,
what do I do?
What do we do? All right. More and more, we are finding inside of clinics what feels like a need for people to bring their view of the world to the office, right? And unfortunately, because the world is full of very weak individuals and very weak business owners and very weak, even in terms of people running the business and what they understand, it's becoming a lot more. It's becoming a lot more allowed that. And it's understandable, right? In an organization, there's 16, 17 people in this office. There might be 2 or 3 people who are in a leadership or a supervisory kind of role, right? Who have to make management decisions. So therefore, there's 14 or 15 people who don't. And it's much easier for those 14 or 15 people to jump down the throats of the 2 or 3 who might be in management. And it's an us against them kind of view of the world. So this is happening a lot more. And if we're not careful, it will be the it is the new challenge, right? We always had the client challenge. When you start a business, you always think that your first and primary challenge to being successful is going to be, do I get enough customers? You nail that with the right marketing, direct response marketing, Paul style marketing. You put your message out there, you reach your customers. Then the real challenge that most people face when trying to scale happens, which is, can I find the right people? So that was always around, but nobody really speaks about it because everyone thinks the answer to all of their problems is to find more patients. And to a degree it is, because if I've got more customers, I can charge more money. If I charge more money, I can find better staff and so on, right? I can just create more things inside of my business that more people want to work for me. But the third challenge that's opening up now is not just, can I find the right people? It's the cultural challenge, the political bias, the political views of people arriving in the workplace. And I believe it'll happen more and more. Jay, did you do uni? Did you do college, university?
Yeah, I went to Michigan State.
So Michigan State, right? And again, forgive me, I'm very, very naive when it comes to politics in university campuses, right? I have no idea whether that would be a left-leaning college or would it be a right-leaning college, right? It's irrelevant. But what I can gather is that more and more political views, I mean, I believe they've always been there in colleges, but I think it's becoming more and more aggressive, that a political narrative is being pushed down by a particular college or a particular campus that you might be on, that makes the kids feel more and more like they have to have a political opinion, and if they don't, they're almost wrong, and if they're not chanting about it, they're wrong. So what I watch, and I'm conscious of it because I've got a 12, soon to be 13-year-old who might want to go to college in a few years, is to how that is going to play out in his life. My biggest fear if he goes to college is the political indoctrination of said campus, right, wherever he goes. So if I've got people coming into my workforce at 20, how old are you when you graduate? 23?
22.
22. So I'm 22 when I graduate, and I've just spent 4 years in a political indoctrination camp, one way or the other, left or right. And every day I was allowed to chant and hold my little banners up and my signs and kind of go on my TikTok account and create all sorts of noise about why somebody's wrong and Trump's wrong or Biden's wrong or Keir Starmer's wrong or whoever, right? If I've spent 4 or 5 years doing that, that's a habit, right? That's a standard that I've got. And I arrive in somebody's office at 22, 23, and I'm thinking, well, I'm allowed to do that here because that's what I did in the political, that's what I did on my campus. And if you've got an environment that is now harboring that and fostering that, and you haven't been strong enough very early to deal with it, well, you've created your own, you've created your own breeding ground for that if you want. So what I'm basically trying to say, this is where being a nice boss ends and being a real leader begins. And we have to face up to and recognize that as time goes on, there is no way that colleges now aren't going to be less political. There's just no way. Though nothing ever goes back, right? And again, I'm 44 as I speak to you now. Nothing goes back. Taxes don't reduce. Cultural toxicity isn't reducing. Cultural snowstorms, the next big thing on Facebook doesn't stop. It just comes to you faster and it just looks bigger. And these things have been going on for a long, long time now, where there's nothing more permanent than a temporary rule in government. I think that's the phrase. There is nothing more permanent than a temporary rule in government. And what's the irony of the whole kind of Britain-America thing 200, 300 years ago? Brits put I think was a 1% tax on American goods at the time, and America broke away from it. So the whole kind of thing broke off because Britain put a 1% tax on America. What's taxes in America these days? I mean, like we know the answer, and the point that I'm raising is when these things start, they don't go back. And I think that you're going to watch and have a problem as time goes on with the next generation. It's not necessarily a Gen Z thing or a millennial thing or whatever. I just think as kids come out of college, they're becoming and are allowed to believe more and more that their political view is such a necessity that they almost, if they haven't got one, that there's something wrong with them. And that's the point I'm trying to raise early. That I think the biggest challenge for kids these days, right, which are going to be our employees soon, is that they are being told that if they don't have a political opinion, there's borderline something wrong with them. It's like they've got to pick a lane They've got to have an opinion on this thing, whether they like it or not. And they've got to be enraged by things, and they've got to be outraged by things. And once they've picked that lane, they kind of dig the fork in, and it's like, that's it. This is who I am. This is my identity. This is my belief. And if you don't buy into my belief, that means that there's something wrong with the world or something wrong with me if you agree with me, right? And that's really where people get their rage from, is they pick a corner, they pick a side, and they pick a set of beliefs. And the second that somebody comes into the world that has a different set of beliefs to them, their only option is to rage against that in the hope that they can persuade them to be right. Because if not, they feel as though their view of the world and their identity and everything that they're about actually stands for nothing and is meaningless. So I have to be angry, and I have to convince you, and I have to shout louder, and I have to be violent now, and I have to get my opinion across, and I have to be triggered by everything and everyone, because everybody I know is triggered by everything and everyone, and that's just how everybody behaves. And that's how life goes. I look around at what everybody else does, and that's my blueprint for the world. Right? It's as old as time. A baby looks at another baby and sees how they behave and how they react. We're all looking for clues from somebody else externally as to how they are behaving for us to interpret that and apply meaning to it. And I think the meaning that a lot of people have got when it comes to like their political view right now is that if I don't have one, it means that I'm insignificant. So I have to have a view. And where I'm going to, and we'll answer that question now, it means that by the time I get to work, I feel like I have to have my political views and everybody around me aligned. Where what it might have been 20 years ago was I can have my opinion, and if you didn't agree with me, we would just kind of laugh and we would shrug shoulders and we'd be like, yeah, okay, well, you know, that's not ideal, or he's silly, or he's stupid, or I don't agree with that. And it's like, okay, cool, let's just have a coffee and get on with it. Now it's like, well, you said this. That means that you are this type of person who's likely to wear a red hat or a blue hat. I'm immediately triggered just because you think that the war in Iran is just, right? Or the war in Iran is not just. And in the end, it really isn't anything to do with my opinion on the war, because I know absolutely nothing about it, right? And none of us ever do. We don't know any information. There's no possible way that any of us get released or would ever be privy to any information. It's all hearsay. It's all hype, and it's all what ifs and speculation and all of these other things. But what I've done is I've decided that if you agree with the war in Iran, it means you're this type of person, and I don't like you, because that means you also agree with this, 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 and this. Or if you don't agree with the war in Iran, that means you're this type of person, and I don't like you because you probably believe this, 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 and this. And that's where a lot of it comes from. It isn't necessarily the actual opinion that they have on the war in Iran or Ukraine or whatever it will be, transgender in schools and so on. It isn't necessarily the thing. It's what that then means that you also likely believe in behind it that triggers most people. So inside of our businesses, we have to deal with this now, and we're going to have to certainly kind of allocate a little bit of a compartment in our brains for, you know, how do we deal with the shit that comes into our offices. I'd sum it up by saying that you are watching now people bringing their identity into environments when really it's an environment that requires professionalism. And that's going to knock out a lot of the world, because their identity and their political ideology is more important than their professionalism. And everybody will have a reason or an excuse as to why this one is different, right? The Iran war is different, or the Ukraine war is different, or transgender is different, or whatever it is. Whatever it is, there will be a reason that that one is different. And everything else is fine, but that particular comment, that doesn't mean I'm unprofessional if I react to it, because it goes against or it stokes a flame for my entire identity, right? That's who I am. And if you don't agree with me, it questions or forces me to question who I am. So I'll overlook my professional duty in favor of reinforcing my entire identity. And as Tony Robbins taught me a decade ago, identity is the strongest thing on earth. You can have an identity as a political activist. You can have an identity as somebody for or against war. You could have somebody for or against a certain party as your ideology, right, or as your identity. In my case, my identity is that of a learner. It's one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful identities in the world. Because every time or every situation I go into something and I make a mistake, it's what can I learn from it. So rather than trying to be right, it's nearly always what can I learn from it. I would like to be right, of course I do, right? I've got a fucking big ego like everybody else. But ultimately, in the end, I reflect on it and think, what can I learn from it? So I think to really dig into this, if you wanted to get tactical, okay, there's two people obviously we've got to evaluate, right? What does somebody always say to me, a good friend of mine? There's three sides. There's the first side, that what he said, what she said, and then there's the truth as to what actually happened. So the patient, did they cross a line, right? Was it abusive? Was it aggressive? Was it inappropriate? The therapist, did they act professionally in the way that they handled it? Did they escalate or de-escalate? Did they fulfill their duty of care? These are some of the things that we've got to we've got to think through in these situations. There's absolutely a difference between a patient being inappropriate, for example, and a patient simply saying something that you disagree with. And I think that's the bit that needs to be understood. Is it inappropriate, or is it just something that you disagree with? Because if it's something that you just disagree with, well, this conversation's over and that patient's back on your schedule. Your feelings, based upon what he says, I can't take into consideration under any circumstances. Now, if it's inappropriate and he's making suggestions that says that if you are this type of person, you're this type of human being, right? That's derogatory, and that's different. But if it's I like Trump, or I like Harris, or I like insert the blank, and I like what Harris is saying right now, or I like Newsom's proposals on insert the blank, that's just a disagreement, right? That's what I'm getting at, right? It isn't really what they're saying, because that's not going to piss anybody off in the cold light of day. You've got to be a real snowflake for anything like that to really irritate you. It's what's being connected behind it, that I'm associating you with a certain type of person if you say these things. And that's what's got my back up. That I've just realized you're this type of person. It's not what you said. It's the clues that what you said that left about you. That's the bit that I'm getting triggered by. So now I'm in a treatment room with somebody who has a completely different view of the world to me, because I know if they've said this, it probably means that they are this type of voter, this type of person with this type of thinking. And that's the bit that's getting people irritated, if you like. So it isn't actually what's being said. It's what they are saying allows the therapist to believe to be true about who they are as individuals. And now we're getting into a realm of judgment, right? The entire world is trying to break free from judgment. Every single human being on earth is trying to break free from judgment. That's all of our actions. If I can be more successful, people will judge me more favorably. If I win in business, my parents will love me. They'll judge me better. They'll judge me more favorably. If I go and get my lips done, if I go and get a bloody boob job, if I get my teeth done, if I get new hair, I will look different, and therefore people will judge me more favorably. There isn't any human being that wakes up today trying to do something to improve the judgment of them more positively. And that's what this is about. We're getting into the realms of judgment, and this is the conversation that I'd be having with people, that we're moving into a judgment conversation here, which is what most people actually are running from. So the chances are this therapist, you will listen to the conversation with this therapist, and they probably have spent their whole life being judged by their parents, judged by their friends, judged by their peers. They'll be a very judgmental individual, right? I might be wrong, and I might be judging, but it's nearly always, it follows a pattern, put it this way. 100 plus staff, 2 countries, it's predictable as clockwork. The people who judge the most or are irritated by other people and actually pass on the most judgment are usually the ones who are irritated by judgment themselves. So they actually recreate in their lives the thing that they're kind of say that they're pissed about. So the judgment thing is really now what we're getting into. But I think in healthcare that's wrong, right? It's categorically wrong that we do that. We chose a very special, very particular profession that has to be and has to remain a judgment-free zone. You're up there with teachers. Teachers and healthcare workers have to be judgment-free zones. That's a level of professionalism that we have to take, right? And maybe that's why I am the way I am in my office, even though I'm not necessarily running a healthcare business anymore. It's a judgment-free zone. I signed up to it when I was a 18-year-old going through college. I knew that any individual that walked into my world, into my treatment room, they would come with all sorts of different backgrounds, different colours, different religions, different views of the world. None of that was for me to judge. It was for me to understand, regardless of whether I agree or disagree. And that's the way I live today, and that's the way I believe that healthcare businesses should be and should remain. We don't get to choose patients based upon beliefs. We might get to choose boundaries based upon behaviours, 2 different things here. We do not get to choose our patients based upon belief. And I think anybody that's in business, and you know, it's as close to having a sign above the door saying liberals only or Republicans only or whatever. Like that's surely the world that we've left behind. Like that's taken us back. So I don't believe that we get to choose patients based upon beliefs. But we do get to set boundaries based upon their behavior. Now, if their behavior is insinuating that you're a certain type of person because you don't agree, or you are stupid if you like Trump, or you are stupid if you like Biden or whoever, who should I use these? Who is it? Who would be the other version of Biden? Newsom, right? Like whatever the slang would be, whatever the, you know, you're stupid if you like Newsom, or you're stupid if you like whoever, right? Insert the blank. Well, that's crossing a line, right? That is a boundary. So if the patient said something like that to one of my patients, then yeah, I'm jumping in. But if the patient says, "Hey, I agree with the war in Iran," I'm not jumping in, right? Or I disagree with the war in Iran. I'm not jumping in, right? That's just their view of the world, right? That's just what they. Or even if they said, I like Trump, fine, it's got nothing to do with me. I dislike Trump, nothing to do with me. But if he turned around and said, "You're stupid because you voted for Trump," well, we've just crossed a boundary. If the patient said, "You are stupid if you like Newsom," well, we just crossed a boundary. I might have my own view, and I might laugh and I might giggle at certain things that the politician does or the thing. But if I'm labeling you, if the patient labels the therapist, then we've crossed a boundary based upon behavior, and I need to jump in there. And that's the distinction that I would make. If it's an opinion, have one. But if I'm insinuating because you don't agree with me, if the patient insinuates that you're stupid or that you're immoral or that you are bad in any way because of an association with a political party or a political decision, well, I think we've then just crossed a boundary, right? And we have to support the therapist. But equally, if the patient just makes a comment about how he or she agrees with insert the blank, and the therapist doesn't like it, I'm sorry, but that's a sit-down conversation with the therapist and everybody in the organisation to remind them that we're not here for that. We're not here to choose and pick patients based upon beliefs. And if anybody is, then they're in the wrong office and they need to leave very, very quickly. And that would be my stance on it. So I'm both for the patient, but equally for my staff. And my job as the leader, and this is why you leaders, you business owners, earn the money. You want the big bucks, you want the extra however many hundreds of thousands of dollars because of the running the business. It's because you have to make decisions like this. Now, some of you might face a little bit of a revolt, and 2 or 3 members of the staff might say, "Paul, I can't work in a place that allows Trump fans in this office." And you go, "Great." Right? And even if you were a staunch Trump hater, to me, you have to come down like that, because if not, you have a mess inside of the business. It does not matter, right? That is the bigger picture. If they walk up to you and say, "I can't allow any Trump fans in this office to ever be treated again, or I'm quitting," you say, "Great, when are you leaving?" That's it. The case is closed, because they've got you to agree to this over here, and you agree not to behave a certain way, then the inmates are running the asylum. And that's not what leadership's about. It's not about a consensus. It's not about everybody being happy inside of the business. The only agreement that needs to happen inside of the business is that there's no conversations about politics that lead to anything that might be discriminatory or making somebody feel inappropriate. If there is a direct accusation or claim made, then we'll address that case by case. If there's occasional jokes mentioned that are lighthearted and actually try to bring a little bit of fun to politics inside of the office, I'm in favour of that, right? We just all need to be on the same page with what we're doing and why we're doing and what was the intent. And that's, again, where I think leaders need to step up. You need to judge each case on its merit, on the what was the intent behind everything. Was this just a throwaway comment that might have been a little bit of a giggle? Or was it genuinely somebody coming in trying to make somebody feel like shit? Now, I treat patients for 15 years, one-on-one, hundreds and thousands of patients came through my doors. I can't think of one that would have walked in my office with the intention of trying to piss my staff off on me based upon any view of the world. I just can't see how any patient comes through the doors with the absolute intent. Some of them are a bit stupid and naive, I agree, and that's a difference, right? Some of them are stupid and naive because they've sat and watched Fox all night and they believe everybody views the world the same as they do the next morning. Or they've watched CNN or the BBC all night and they think everybody sees the view of the world as liberal. So they're a little bit indoctrinated into that when they arrive in your clinics, and they genuinely think that everybody sees the view of the world as they do. But that doesn't mean that they're bad people. It means that we need to be bigger and we need to be better, and I as a leader might need to step in. I possibly did once or twice where there might have been inappropriate conversations, males to females and so on, which was just a little uncomfortable. Didn't really go all the way to like, this is bad, just a little, let's just curb this with a little, can we be careful please, this might have crossed an inappropriate line. It's up to them, the patient, whether or not they want to come back. But nearly always when anything was pointed out, they were absolutely fine. They were like apologetic, they turned into the most beautiful patients ever, and for whatever reason they just got carried away in the moment with saying certain things. So I don't see this as any other thing than you as the business owner, once again, needs to be a leader. You need to set your own views of how your business will run and what you will tolerate and what you won't. And you'll need to have very clear distinctions between this was inappropriate behavior and a boundary that we've been set based upon that behavior. But we absolutely do not categorically ever get to choose our patients based upon their beliefs. And that I think is a line that if you cross as a business owner, and I say this because you'll see certain businesses that'll make it blatantly obvious that they're Republican or blatantly obvious that they're liberal, and they're doing their best to make sure that you don't come in if you're the opposite. That's fine if you're a hardware store. That's fine if you're selling alcohol, right? That's fine if you're selling shoes. Do what you want, guys, but this is healthcare. This is a completely different level of empathy that is needed, and it's a special profession that should be exempt from any belief ruling you in or out from ever receiving great treatment. But I do preface it. The job of the CEO is to decide whether that comment crossed a behavior boundary, not just a belief and a genuine conversation or view of the world that they might have that you just wholeheartedly disagree with. So that's what I would say is where we're at. The clinic isn't a place for an agreement. And this is, again, another parting shot for all of you. A clinic is not a place for agreement. Businesses are not places for agreement. In healthcare, they're a place for care. Physical therapy is a place for care. It's not a place for political agreement. And you don't have to agree with patients. But you do have to treat them professionally unless a line is crossed, and that's exactly how I would explain it to the therapist. It's a leadership conversation. Grow up a little, get a set of balls, talk to your staff. This is what we'll tolerate. This is what we want. This is the grey areas that we know, in today's climate that we have to deal with. But this is how we're going to manage it moving forward on a case-by-case basis. And final thing I'm going to say on it, if your team can't handle somebody who disagrees with them, trust me, they are going to struggle in the real world. They are absolutely going to struggle in the real world. And you're going to watch this more and more. I'm 44 now. I've employed somebody since I was 24, 25. I've gone through 2 decades of hiring staff, and I've watched over the years, every 5 to 10 years, you feel the change in the new early members of staff that come into the business. Their views of the world, their attitudes, their beliefs are very, very different to when I first employed 20 years ago, because they've got so much more access to information that's indoctrinating them into the view of the world that's quite polarized and aggressive, and that's their view of the world is TikTok. I was at the pool yesterday in Orlando. Natalie's mum and dad are over, and we went to one of the pools on our community, like a community pool, for a little afternoon. And I was sat in a hot tub with Grayson, and I could hear these kids. They must have been 20, 21. And they commented how one of their friends announced that he was gay on that day on TikTok. Right? They were literally commenting, like, he announced it on TikTok. Right? And fine. But my point is, this is in 20 years ago. Such a thing on TikTok wouldn't have even been a conversation, right? So everything is played out on TikTok is what I'm getting at. Every view of the world is going viral within 30 to 60 seconds. 2 of their friends, and I'm listening to this conversation go on in the hot tub, 2 of this guy's friends had absolutely no idea. I think the other kid kind of made out as though he did, or he had a hunch, but they were sat in a hot tub 1 hour after this video was posted, having their opinion on this guy and whether or not they saw it coming, or whether or not they knew or they didn't know, and what it meant. And this was the whole topic of conversation in the hot tub yesterday. I think the kids were 19 to 21, probably. That like, if I try to explain that to even some of my staff listening to this who are early 20s, they would say, but that's normal, Paul. That's what goes on, right? But what I'm pointing out is that 20 years ago, none of this stuff would have been discussed in the way it is today. No, things would have naturally made their way to people. The speed that these things get to people now, before you get the next one, you almost have to make your opinion on something so quickly, because you know in the next 60 minutes, the next video is coming for you to have another opinion on it. And my point is, how educated or how informed are these decisions when a new thing that you need to decide upon lands in your news feed every 60 seconds? Does that make sense, Jay? Do you get that? Yeah. How can your brain possibly rationalize the context of something, the importance of something, the validity of something, the meaning of something, when in another 60 seconds you're going to be expected to do the same thing? And that, to me, is the biggest problem with kids who are now early 20s and even 30s who've grown up around this ecosystem of information fed to them. There simply isn't a brain alive anywhere in the world that can process this information accurately, factually, unemotionally, where it is for the better of that individual that they are now in a much better, stronger, more powerful position to live a better quality of life. There is no possible way that any teenager or 20-year-old, 30-year-old or 40-year-old, 50-year-old can deal with this information and the speed and the velocity that they are expected to make decisions. Zero, none, zip, nada. And if you want to know why kids are stressed to bits, why they're in and out of therapy, like levels that they've never been in before, why 20-year-olds are depressed and are on medication like they've never ever been before, I put it to you, it's this. And I, like I said, I'm watching it. I've played it out of hiring people, raising kids, try to avoid some of it, like the plague of being on TikToks and various things, to avoid news and to avoid information, simply because I know my brain cannot interpret it at the level that the media machines are pushing it down on us. And therefore, I'm going to end up with a twisted view of the world that is inaccurate. So I've got to be very, very cautious. But obviously, most people are not doing this. It's nicotine. It's drugs. Had a conversation with Keith, Natalie's dad, yesterday around this whole topic of phones. My kids are not getting phones. Categorically not getting phones. If I can get them to 16, I'm at least 16, right? And Keith said, well, how did you deal with it, right? How did you tell Harry he's 12? Every one of his friends have got phones. Every single one of his friends have got phones. The last one came up to us at Christmas and said, can I just ask, are you buying Harry a phone for Christmas? He said, because if you get one, I'm going to have to get this kid one. We went, no, we're not getting him one. We're like, oh, shit. Right? Because it put him under pressure to go get one. He had to get one in the end, right? In my kids' world, it's the only thing I've said to them. You're going to get away with so much, Harry. And you've got a dad who sees the world differently. I don't care about school. I openly mock school. I have no interest in it. I'll ask them to participate and I'll ask them to try their best, but there's absolutely no pressure from me on any of their grades or any of their results. What there is a conversation about habits and standards, and how you do anything, son, is how you do everything. So if you fuck school up, you'll probably fuck other things up. So this isn't really a school thing. This is an attitudinal thing, son. How you show up is what I'm interested in, not necessarily the grade. And how you do anything, how you do anything. You're going to get away with so much with me. You can get away with rules, you can curse, you can swear, you could probably drink a little early, right? Here I am, I'm definitely not getting the Father of the Year award. But I just don't like rules in their lives, right? Even the alcohol thing, I have no interest in it. If my kid's raised in England, they'd start drinking at 15 or 16, right? Certain countries, they can do it at 12 or 13. So what's all the hysteria around 21? Now, I respect the law. I absolutely do. But I have no interest on running a military operation for my kids. They're going to have the rest of their life for all of that shit. But the only thing that I will not negotiate with him on is the phone. And that's what I'm getting at. I believe wholeheartedly in this thing, that the addiction that this thing and the behavior change and the head fuck that this thing creates and the losing of a child the second that you put that phone in their hand. Now, he uses my phone or Natalie's phone if we're out for lunch or one of his mates wants to get in touch with him, but it's controlled. So he's exposed to certain things, but it's controlled. It's not high risk, right? Or high exposure to low controlled risk, which is what phones are. They are high exposure to low controlled risk. There is no control, right, with any of it. So there is low control, but there's massive risk when you give somebody a phone, because I believe it changes the way that they think and it changes the way they see the world. Too early. The brain is no context for some of the things that these kids are seeing and the conversations that they're getting involved in. And I've watched even Harry's friends already. We've lost them. You've lost them. They come into the house. They're different kids within the space of a year of having a phone. They talk less. They're moody. They want to sit on their phone. If they haven't had it for 10 minutes, they go check it. Harry's friends get out of the pool to go check their phone. They're 12-year-old. What the fuck? If that's not wrong, what is? Like, what is wrong if that's not wrong? Come on, right? And this plays into this conversation about what you're going to have to manage over the next however many years in your offices. This is not going to get better. This will get worse. Everything does. I don't care what anybody says. Nothing goes back. Everything just gets more aggressive. People are becoming more aggressive. Medication is more used. Behavior is less. Culturally, people just don't give a shit. They turn up for work when they want. Like, this is where we're at. And I think more than ever, these conversations are important for business owners, because you're going to have to know how to handle them. If you can't, business is tough at the best of time, but if you don't know how to handle this and you don't see some of this coming, you're in trouble. So that's my view. What's next? Next one.
All right. We have Colorado on the clock. Here.
Colorado. Let's go.
Castle Rock, Mike Welsh. I dropped my biggest insurance contract and lost 40% of my revenue overnight. Did I move too fast?
Ooh. I dropped my biggest contract and lost 40% of my revenue overnight. Did I move too fast? Well, it depends how much money you've got in the bank, Mike. I suspect everything is to do with your liquidity and your fluidity. Now, if I've got no money in the bank and I've lost 40% of my revenue overnight, I'm in trouble. But what's interesting, we had this call today actually from a client who was talking to us about moving into one of our programs, into our mastermind program. And she said she knows she needs to drop. So I'll give you this context. She knows she needs to drop insurance. But one of the issues she faces is her staff, who think that she's doing it out of greed. And she has a little bit of a challenge with the staff who don't want her to do it, because it means that certain patients won't be able to get treatment in that clinic, right? Now, this is a very valid, very real issue that many people have. If I drop insurance, it does mean that 1 out of 3, 2 out of 3 maybe of the patients might not use us. Now, whether that's right or wrong, whether that's ethical or not, I'm not so sure that we're here to deliberate that. I think, going back to my stance on most things, it's up to each individual's personal responsibility for access to anything. If I want access to great healthcare, then I have to find the money from somewhere. And what we're talking about here, for most people, it's easy to say, well, Sally can't afford that, or Steve can't afford that, or he can't pay an extra $1,500. I'll preface it with an exception that there will be 5% genuinely excluded from this next conversation. But the majority of people who are heading for physical therapy are paying some form of copay anyway, $50, $60, $70. So 10 or 12 sessions costing the typical client today $500, right? I've got clients up in Colorado. I won't be too far away with what I'm saying there, that it's going to cost $300 to $500 minimum, right? So if I can afford $300 to $500, okay, a batch of cash PT might cost me $1,000 to $1,500, maybe more, depending upon what you charge. But let's just call it $1,500. So I need to find $1,000. And that sounds like a lot of money, right? 65% of Americans have never got $1,000 in their bank. But the majority of those 65% of Americans are not going for physical therapy anyway, right? So that they're not included in this conversation. They don't come for physical therapy. For whatever reason, they're at a certain point, patients will not and do not come, right? And I hate to say this, but it's just fucking true. There is a demographic, psychographic of patients who will not and do not value their health. And there is a strong correlation between people who are in a lot of debt, right, and very little access to money, who also don't value their health. Why? It's not for this podcast, but it's not far off true that if I behave a certain way, I live a certain way, I save a certain way, there's a fair and reasonable correlation between that and my love of my health, right? If I'm a certain demographic, sociographic, economical situation, I probably don't have the money, but I probably don't care about my health as much anyway either, right? That and again, take that however you want. I was raised in a small economically challenged town called Hartlepool in the northeast of England. There's no money there. Very few people valued their health enough to want to pay for it. And what we found was a correlation between those who had no money and ill health. Even if you give them the money, they wouldn't come in for treatment and they wouldn't do what they were told. They just didn't care about their health, and it showed up in their lives, it showed up in their habits, it showed up in their standards, it showed up in their saving standards, in their work ethic standards. They just didn't care, right? It's not going to be politically correct, but it's just fucking true, right? All over the world. So 65% of Americans will never have $1,000 or more, but the majority of those 65% would never be coming for physical therapy anyway. That's what I'm getting at. So we're down to the 35% who have got $1,000. Now, it might be tight for some of them. It might be a squeeze for some of them. It might need a payment plan needed for some of them. Or it might cause them or need them to reroute the money. They might need to stop smoking cigarettes or alcohol, or shop at Walmart instead of Publix, or they might need to not go away for the weekend, or they might need to not spend $3,000 on their kids at Christmas and, heaven forbid, only spend $800. Like, it's things like this that the majority of the world can afford. The typical client for physical therapy in private practice anyway, yeah, I'm not saying that they're all loaded and multimillionaires and money coming out of their asses. But I'm saying is enough of them have got enough cash flow that they could reroute it. And that's all that it's nearly always about. Will they decide, and do they value their health enough to reroute it? So if I was dealing with this in my office, which I did for many, many years, when we raised prices or we moved to packages and various things, staff would be like, oh, nobody in Hartlepool will be able to afford that. No. The minute somebody says nobody in Hartlepool and they make generalizations, you're dealing with idiots, right? You're dealing with idiots. Like, that's the news. That's what the news does. They make sweeping generalizations that nobody's got any money, everybody's unhappy, yada, 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 right? Not necessarily true. The generalization is 65% of people wouldn't be your client anyway. Physical therapy is typically for the 35%, right, who value their health enough to want to pay for it. Then I'm into another sub-niche of people who really value their health and think, you know what, I want the absolute best and I want to spend as much money as I can. But the majority of clinics that we deal with, they may not be dealing with high-end, all day long, ultra-wealthy, high-net-worth individuals. They're dealing with a guy or a girl who has a nice income, works hard for a living, good, solid, middle class, working their nuts off, probably going to work, husband and a wife both going and doing a great job, picking their kids up from school and trying their best. But they're also spending money on clothes. They're spending money on nice meals. They're out for the weekend. They're in a restaurant on a Friday, or they've got takeaways coming, or they've got things moving in their house that they can juggle around if they want. And that's what this is. That's who you're typically talking to. Somebody who can make the decision. Just because they don't want to, that doesn't mean that it's not ethically correct for you to drop insurance or raise prices. You might lose a few soldiers, as in patients in your clinic, but they've made the choice that they don't want to reroute money from a weekend away or an extravagant Christmas versus a moderate Christmas, or a big birthday surprise for two of their kids versus a more moderate one, and save $1,000, or not go out for 3 weekends, stick it on a payment plan and reduce costs somewhere else in the family. Somebody who wants to do that will. Somebody who doesn't won't. That's it. So again, no judgment. It doesn't make any difference to me or to any business owner. It shouldn't do. My job is always what's right for the business. And I don't give a shit who you are listening to, what other gurus are out there. I've seen some of these coaches telling you what's right for the patient is right for the business. Bollocks. Complete and utter crap trap. What is right for the business is right for the business and everybody associated with it. It's the only decision that you make. What is right for the business ultimately then is right in the long term for the patients and right in the long term for the staff. Every decision that any good business owner makes is in what is in the right, best intentions long term for the good of this company. Because this company needs to last 20, 30, 40 years. It needs to endure. And I can't get into some romantic, let's do this for the patients or let's do this for the staff, because that is a short-term aid, short-term relief inside of a business that's probably failing. The bigger, harder decisions are always the best ones in the long run, which is the only place it matters when it comes to growing a business. If you want to be liked by everybody, good luck. Good luck. And you're filling yourself full of hot air if you think you can please all your patients and all of your staff, and you can keep these prices low and keep every patient happy and keep every staff member happy. Here's the news flash. The staff will fucking leave you anyway. The patients will go somewhere else the minute that another clinic opens up and a doctor refers them, or they can't get in with a patient next to you. You've got to stop thinking that everybody is worshipping you and your altar only. People leave, people move, they make their decisions to go to other clinics. The staff leave, they make their decisions to go based upon their needs and their family. And at that point, they will not give a shit about you or your business. But you will be the one lifting the baby. And all of these staff now who are telling you, don't drop insurance, let's say there's 5 of them right now saying, don't drop insurance inside of your clinic. Ring me in 24 months and tell me how many of those 5 staff are still in that clinic. I bet you no more than 2. So 3 of the fuckers who created a revolt inside of your business aren't even in the business anymore. Meanwhile, you're the one left living out of a fucking overdraft. You're the one who's left begging the bank for money to try and keep this business afloat, and you're the one having to go home every month telling your husband or your wife, honey, maybe next month we can go on vacation. Honey, maybe next year we'll actually get that dream home. Honey, maybe in 10 years we'll actually finally be able to get a nice second house or a little place somewhere for us that we've been dreamed of. But it won't be anytime soon, because this business of ours isn't making any money, because these 3 fucking staff members who told me not to leave insurance, they all ganged up on me and told me and put the emotional guilt trip on me so that I didn't do it. This is the reality of running a business, and this is what goes on. And that's why in the end, the only person that ever makes any meaningful decision about the business is the business owner, not the staff. It's not a consensus. We've seen what happens when it becomes a consensus in politics. The consensus does not work inside of any business ever. You, the business owner, makes the decision. If you want to use AI, you implement AI and let everybody else in the company fucking deal with it or leave. You want to drop insurance, you drop insurance and let everybody in the company deal with it or fucking leave. And the reality is 90% of the staff will get on board. Might you lose 1 or 2? Good, but they were going to go anywhere. They wouldn't have been hanging around with you for the long term, because the ones who are going to hang around with you for the long term are in it for the long term. They're not in it because you decided to drop insurance. They're not in it because you decided to stay in insurance. They're not in it because you used AI or you didn't use AI. They're in it because they wanted to be with you for the long haul of the business. And all of these decisions along the way, they're all just incidental. They're all necessary evils that we have to make or we have to go through in order to grow and sustain the business long term. Now, none of this is ever reported by any media outlet. It's never in a Hollywood movie. It's never in the news. It's never on Instagram. It's never out there in an article. All that's ever in the articles or all that's ever in the movies is the big bad boss, and the boss is this, and the boss should pay more tax, and they've got the broader shoulders, and the boss is evil, and the boss should accommodate for their staff's needs, and the company shouldn't do this, and the company should do this. And frankly, it's a complete load of shit. And it is and does explain why so many businesses fail, because at the helm of it is incredibly weak leaders, influenced by stupid-ass people who have no clue how the world works, how money works, how success works, how habits leads to standards, standards leads to results. None of this stuff is ever communicated. And that's the real challenge for most business owners. They listen to poor people about finances. They listen to fat people when it comes to diet advice. They listen to unhappy people when it comes to conversations about being happy. They listen to people with broken marriages when it comes to relationship advice. They crazily listen to people who have never ever lived or achieved anything that they want, and yet they're still sitting down with them day after day asking this question. So has this business owner, has he made a wrong decision? It depends how much cash he's got in the bank. It depends how aggressive he's going to be with a cash pay marketing plan. It depends whether he's got his internal marketing system set up to convert his current insurance patients to rare bid monthly cash pay business owner patients, because that absolutely is possible if he's got the right systems. But sadly, what most people do, they wake up, their frustration gets the better of them, they drop insurance, and they wake up the next day and they go, oh shit, what have I done? I am literally up shit creek without the proverbial paddle. Now, if he's woke up 12 months ago, and this would be my advocate for anybody wanting to do this, you wake up 12 months ago and you go, I'm fucking sick of insurance, I'm sick to death of not getting paid, I'm sick to death of denials, and I'm sick to death of not actually being able to make any money and everybody else benefiting from me. I'm now going to slowly but surely work towards, over the next 12 to 18 months, making my business move from 99% insurance to 70% over the next 12 months. That's a safe decision. Or 60%. And I'm going to do that with better, stronger, more authoritative marketing. I'm going to write a book. I'm going to pick a niche. I'm going to pick a lane. I'm going to train my staff on how to upsell. I'm going to go learn how to implement membership and concierge into my business. I'm going to get to one of Paul's events and see what other products and services people like me are selling at their practices to gross however many hundreds of thousands a year that I'm not currently doing. If he's done that, then he hasn't made a mistake. But I suspect, like most people, it's deers in a headlight, it's squirrels bouncing around here, there, and everywhere, waking up one day going, shit, I'm happy, let's do this. I'm not happy, let's do this. That's the recipe for disaster. If he's got a plan and he's willing to execute it, it's absolutely the right decision to kick 20, 30, 40% of these insurance companies to the curb. 40 might be steep, right? In all honesty, 40 is steep. I have seen, by the way, one clinic owner switch the lights on a Monday, off on a Friday at 5 o'clock as an insurance-based business and open back up on a Monday at 9, fully cash. Holy shit, right? That was a big deal. It was a guy in Austin, a guy called Stephen Dunn, and that was 7 or 8 years ago. And many people have done something very similar. So it's up to you. It's a good plan, a good team around you, a good coach, a good community who's doing it. You've got a chance. If you just do it on a whim, some people, Tony Robbins says, burn the boats, right? Now, if you've got some cash, you can burn the boats. If you've got 15 staff and you're into your line of credit or your overdraft and you burn the boats, you're fucked, right? So the same advice is right for one person, is wrong for another. If you've got $500,000 sat in the bank and you've got money coming out of your ass, burn the boat, right? Because you can afford to figure out where to find the paddle to swim. If you haven't got the money, you can't burn the boats, and we need to be more strategic. So Tony Robbins' advice isn't going to be very helpful for you, depending upon who you are. And that's the bit that you need help with. Where am I? What is my situation? Is this the right move? What's the safest, best step to go from insurance to cash pay into my business, slowly dripped over a 1 year, 2 year, 3 year? Any insurance business owner listening to this, I've got proof beyond any reasonable doubt that you can move from 100% insurance to 50, 60, even 40% all cash inside of your business if you wanted to. Still keep your insurance contracts that look after you, that respect you, that are healthy, that allows for enough insurance patients to come through the doors that you can turn into cash pay patients into other areas of the business. That's the strategic and smart way to do it. All right. Right, that's all we got time for. I'm going to have to draw a line there. I know we had some more questions that were coming in there today, but thank you for joining. Who did I see here? Chadwick Physio, South Jersey, nice to see you. Natalie, Harlow, Gary, nice to see you. Morris, Orthopedic, Dr. Jinal, nice to see you. King JPT, Jiggins Pauline, Ekware Atonje, I believe, Ray H2OZ, The Movement Doctor, Elise, Ali, SH Physio, Clara Lazenja, Nimi Dorego, many, many more. Patrick Keenan, Mom's Ballin', that's a cool one. Mom's Ballin', I like that one. But anyway, that's just some of the people I can see on Instagram. Thank you, and also you guys on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube as well. Final thing, you know where we're headed. Cash Pay Summit, Los Angeles. Make sure you're there. This is the place. It's not hype when I tell you this is the event of the year. I've been doing events for 10 years. I've done 50, 60 events around the world. This is the event that you do not want to miss. This one's more important than my first ever one. Back in 2016, I taught the concept of follow-up systems and nurturing clients. Many, many thousands of businesses have been started with that mindset. It was the only way to ever get cash pay patients. Pick a niche. Pick your perfect patient, put them in a follow-up system, nurture them, have the right script, price appropriately, build out your packages. I brought that to this profession 10 years ago, non-negotiable. All of the people that are trying to teach you all of this stuff these days, they all learned from me 10 years ago. That was a pivotal moment in the cash PT profession. Today, in 2026, it's as important, if not more important, that you understand where AI is headed inside of your business. I think most of you listening to this are stuck thinking that AI is a chatbot. You ask it a question and it responds, and you think, no, I've got AI covered. I'm using Claude, I'm using Grok, I'm using ChatGPT, whatever. Paul, I'm using it to write me an email. Paul, I'm using it to write me a blog. Paul, I'm using it to ask a question. Great. But that was 2023, 2024's evolution of AI. We're in 2026. We're already talking about what our clinics are going to look like in 2030. But it's happening today. And AI has moved on from chatbots to tasks and roles inside of your business that can now categorically, without any reasonable doubt, replaced. And if you're not using them, it's costing you 50 grand in every single employee that you might not need from today. So come and join us in the Cash Pay Summit. Day one is the AI profit revolution, and I'll show you concrete proof about how AI is being used inside of clinics in many, many different areas, many different parts of the business, and how it can save you money, save you time, and ultimately make you money as well. ignorance is bliss until it costs you money. You can stay away if you want, but I think you're going to miss something very, very special. And I think you could end up a couple of years behind if you don't join us in Los Angeles. We've picked LA, we picked Hollywood. It's a showcase event. It's a spectacular place for a showcase event. It is the ultimate event for the cash pay community in 2026. And if you are an insurance business owner, yes, you need to be there. Of course, your business is loaded with insurance, but that doesn't mean that this is not for you. It means it is for you, because I suspect that you don't want more insurance in your life. It's a sinking ship. We all know that. You want more cash in your life. It's called the Cash Pay Summit. How do we get more cash pay into your business? CashPaySummit.com. We'll see you in Los Angeles. See you there. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Jip.